The Blue Jays are going to have a key decision to make at the DH position, which has been left behind by Brandon Belt. All signs are pointing towards him not returning, and the Blue Jays are going to have a lot of players to pick from in free agency. So we'll break that down on this episode of Jays Digest, as well as a few moves went down in international free agency. So we'll have that and much more coming up next. What's up, Jays fans? I'm your host, Peter Vryonis, alongside host Nick Gosse. Now, the Blue Jays, we've been waiting for them to do something and fill that vacancy that has been left behind by Brandon Belt at the DH position. All signs are pointing towards him not being back. I wouldn't be shocked if he retired, and I wouldn't be shocked if he signed a one-day contract with the San Francisco Giants and just called it quits, because he was good last year, but he's not exactly what the Blue Jays needed. He was solid. He was brought in there to maybe be like the sixth hitter, but he had to go into that number three, number four spot towards the end of the season because no one else was performing. He did an admirable job, but he struck out way too much and just didn't have enough power to compensate for his lack of just strikeouts or whatnot. So the Blue Jays are going to have a key decision to make here. There's a lot of options that they could go towards, whether it be Jorge Soler, Rhys Hoskins, or whoever it is in that DH position. But Nick, it's a very interesting conversation to have, and hopefully it gets resolved soon because spring training is about a month away here.
Yeah, and as the decision looms closer and closer, and more, I guess, reports are dropping. Before we get into it, a quick reminder to hit the subscribe button. We are on the road to 12,000, so it would mean the world if you could do that. And let's get into the first topic. Like you said, the Jays are a pretty big decision to make, and we've kind of discussed some of the targets before, but when you're looking towards mentioning Brandon Belt, that's a very good point to make because he was kind of the guy last year that a lot of Jays fans right now are not really talking about replacing. Obviously, we know that left field is kind of still up in the air a little bit. And this article dropped and basically says the Blue Jays still need to sign a DH, of course. And there are 5 good candidates, but one stands out. We're going to focus on a guy we've yet to fully focus on. And I guess a couple of guys here. So we've already discussed Soler, Martinez, and Peterson. But Peter, let's focus on Rhys Hoskins today and also can discuss Justin Turner a little bit. And we don't know what move they're going to make. Obviously, there's a lot of different players that they could pick from. You mentioned it earlier. There's some more flashy than others. But Rhys Hoskins is a very, very interesting guy, especially when you're looking to replace Brandon Belt. And I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that they end up getting potentially 2 of these guys if they really want to go for it. Because you mentioned it, we still need a quote-unquote bench bat alongside our DH. You want, or I guess, a fourth outfielder to a degree. So I don't see a reason why they can't get both of these guys. But you can pause and read this. We know what Rhys Atkins had to say. But Peter, what are your thoughts on a potential Rhys Hoskins move to the Blue Jays? Again, we've discussed some of the other guys. But Rhys Hoskins is a guy who didn't play last season, and he has a very high ceiling and is the youngest out of that bunch.
Yeah, he's solid, but I don't think it's realistic for the Blue Jays to get 2 of these guys because Rhys Hoskins is probably going to want a one-year deal to prove that he can still hit at the major league level, and there's no doubt that he can. I'm sure if he's fully healthy and if he's in the lineup every day, he's going to hit his fair share of home runs, and he's going to contribute in the middle of that lineup. So he'd be hesitant to come to a situation where there would be another guy that could potentially get in his way. I don't know how much first base he's going to play. Maybe he'll give an off day every now and then to Vladdy, but he's not the greatest of fielders in the world, so I believe he's going to be brought in to be a DH. And this article that we're going to focus on here focuses on Rhys Hoskins as a value play, and it shows that this could be the best bang for your buck signing that the Blue Jays make. But I'm going to argue with that and say, why should we look for value? Why should we go for the bang for your buck signing? Splurge. You haven't splurged yet in this offseason. You spent a total of, what, $25 million to bring in Isaiah Kiner-Falefa and bring back Kevin Kiermaier. So you really haven't spent much money if you're the Blue Jays front office. You have all that money that you were going to spend on Shohei Ohtani. I'm not expecting you to go out and splurge $700 million, but at the same time, you got to make this team better, and you have a mandate to make this team better, considering all the renovations and the outcry that we had from the fan base last year. So don't spend 700 million, but sign someone to a 2, 3, maybe even a 4-year deal and make this lineup better, not just for next season, but for years after that. Because yeah, there's a 2-year window that we've been talking about, but I doubt the Blue Jays want to let Vladdy and Bo walk for nothing. So I'm sure they're going to try to make an attempt to re-sign them. Whether they retain them is another question that may be answered in a future video, but Nick, I mean, you can't just focus on value here. The Jays are not a team that is like scraping the bottom of the barrel for money. They have money and they're able to spend that money. So why not go out and make this team better, not only for next year, but the foreseeable future as well?
Yeah, and they've already did their value plays, I would say, with Kevin Kiermaier and Connor Falefa to a degree,
Exactly.
if you consider that value, but specifically Kevin Kiermaier. And he kind of goes back and references what Ross Atkins says, where the slow moving market is a positive for the Jays, and that is, I would agree with that. That's true. I mean, there's still a chance that they go out and make a big splash with Cody Bellinger. We don't really know, but it seemed like that's less and less likely. Basically, from Toronto's perspective, we have a really good team. We have support from ownership. We have agility. So when you have those things, being patient can be advantageous. And again, that's the big thing here is that the market is not moving fast, which works in the Blue Jays' favor. But again, if Rhys Hoskins is a value play for sure, but we don't know, he would be probably the riskiest option out of the bunch just because he didn't play last year. We don't know how he's going to recover from his injury. Yes, at his peak, he was a very, very good hitter. But when you're comparing him to some of these other guys, again, we talk about JD Martinez. There hasn't been as much buzz there lately. I would rather them go out and get one of those guys personally than Rhys Hoskins, unless Rhys Hoskins, and you said it probably isn't likely, and I tend to agree, is open to some, I guess, not a fourth, I guess a fourth, not outfielder, but fourth player role on
Like
the
a
bench. Yeah.
platoon situation.
So,
Yeah.
but I don't think he would do that, especially with the fact that he's coming off of, he's going to do a 1 year deal, a prove it contract. And I don't know, it's a messy situation. But again, the big thing here is the market's not moving. It hasn't moved. And until the big fish are off the board and then we're left with Justin Turner, Jock Peterson, and Rhys Hoskins, I don't think we have to panic quite yet. That being said, spring training is a month from today. So it's going to be very interesting. Any quick final thoughts before I move on to some moves that the Jays made?
Yeah, I think Jorge Soler is the number one target, or should be the number one target here. He's the I think he is the youngest of the bunch.
I think tied with Hoskins or something like that.
Yeah, he's 31 if I'm not
Yes, yep.
mistaken, and he's coming off a healthy season where he produced 36 home runs last year with the Marlins in a very pitcher friendly ballpark. So we got to keep that in mind as well. He's a big time power hitter, and he's got the most power out of those names that we've mentioned in this video thus far. So I would go for him. And I know he's going to command a multi year deal, but this is someone that could be part of your future plans as well. He doesn't seem to be slowing down. Yeah, he's had some inconsistent seasons every now and then, but when it comes to overall power and just straight up thump that this guy could add to your lineup, I don't think there's anyone on that list that is better than Jorge Soler. And if we're looking at the safest bet, it's probably JD Martinez on a 1 year or 2 year deal just because he's been such a good hitter for his entire major league career. But that's possible. I could see either JD Martinez or Jorge Soler being the answer in this offseason. But I don't know if Rhys Hoskins is that guy.
Yeah, let us know in the comments what your thoughts are on him. And out of these five that you can see under here, which one would you pick the most? Now, let's move on to Jays making moves. It's not the move we wanted necessarily, but these moves always tend to work out for the Blue Jays. They're very good at drafting international pool, and they made this move today. The Toronto Blue Jays and catcher Franklin Rojas have agreed to a term of $1.1 million, and then you basically can go on to see that they report they have signed 9 international players thus far. You can go through and read all those and do some research on them yourself. But this catcher one is very interesting. Again, I mean, not that this necessarily correlates, but we traded Gabriel Moreno. We don't have too many catchers in the pipeline that are young, and they went ahead and signed a pretty young guy in Franklin Rojas here. Peter, do you have any thoughts on this signing? Again, we don't know too much about him, but I usually trust Ross Atkins with international players. We saw with Vladdy, we saw with a lot of other guys, and they usually have a pretty good handle on what to expect, and especially when scouting a lot of these guys.
I'm just wondering, is Warlene Soto Juan Soto's younger brother? Is that possible?
Let us know.
It is. Then, then maybe there's something. There's a truth behind that signing over there. Maybe they're trying to pry Juan Soto over to the Blue Jays. Who knows? Maybe I'm reading a little bit too much into the lines here, but you never know. You never know how this Blue Jays front office is operating. They always tend to fly under the radar, and that could be one of those moves over there. But 1.1 million for an international free agent, and that's big time money. The Blue Jays signed Vladdy for 4.1 a few years back, or like 8 years back, something like that, and they signed who is the outfielder there?
I don't remember the name, but I know you're talking about.
Yeah, Bonilla, Emmanuel Bonilla,
Emmanuel.
to for 3.9 million, I believe. So when you get into that stratosphere, like over a million for an international free agent that is sort of unproven, then maybe he's got some potential over there. And You honestly never know how prospects are going to pan out. We don't know much about these guys here, but it's definitely interesting to focus on, and hopefully we see these names pop up in some of our videos in a couple years down the line, and hopefully we read more about these guys in a couple years because that's always a good sign.
Yeah, and if you know about any of these prospects, and if you are into that, let us know. Because again, it's probably early to discuss them too much, but they did make that deal today, and it's a move, even though it's not the move we wanted. But thank you guys for watching. That will wrap it up. If you want to check out our video from yesterday, click on your screen now, and we will see you tomorrow.